Typically in most forms of media, the charts of power scaling can vary greatly. You'll have some fodder and side characters at the bottom, some like other creatures, main characters towards the upper half, but in most situations, gods and other forms of higher beings sit at the top. For our Archons only series, we saw that the first two gods are definitely worthy of that title, but now the ball is in the hands of Ball, the Electro Archon of Inazuma. Surely she has to do well, right? I mean, after all.
None can contend with the supreme power.
But before we get into the rules and anime opening, I would just like to give a quick shout out to NTE. Neverness to Everness is an anime-styled supernatural open-world RPG coming out later this year with a closed beta test slated to release soon. NTE takes place in a huge city called Heathero, and in this setting, you can drive cars, commit crimes, drive cars with friends, commit crimes with friends, make your own houses, and more. You can do all of these activities while enjoying the game's beautiful day-nighttime cycles, seamless transitions, and film-grade visual and sound designs. The game is still in closed beta testing, but here's what they've added to the game since the first test. With the second closed beta test, 4 new characters have been added: Daffodil, June Yoon, Edgar, and Hanel. Additionally, more features have been added to the city life, such as random encounter missions with characters, inviting characters to your house or vehicle, or even going to prison. Yes, you can live the life of a prisoner for a day and even try to break out. Another update they've added to this beta test is the City Tycoon, which you can manage to get better housing, vehicles, and more. This test of NTE will be available on PC, mobile devices, and PlayStation 5, and you can pre-register for the game's release using the link in the description. The full game will be released later this year in 2026. Thanks again to NTE for sponsoring this video. Now let's go over the rules. Here are the rules. We can only use
The All Mighty Raiden Shogun.
I promise I'm not going to use that clip every time.
Did somebody say
Shogun, the Almighty,
And all weapons are allowed, including
the Muso no Hitotachi.
there's no third rule here like there was for Zhongli because, well, you'll see. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's see if we can beat Genshin Impact only using
The Almighty Raiden Shogun.
We start our journey the same way just about every Archon's journey begins, with loss. These wishes were recorded back in January of 2024 during 4.3. On the first attempt to attain the Shogun, we got a Diluc, which meant that the second account resulted in us getting Tainari. But since I already had a Tainari account beforehand, I knew we had a guaranteed way to obtain Raiden now, so I just bit the bullet. We also got some 4-star weapons while doing these summons, which meant that now none can contend with the supreme power
Of the Almighty Raiden Shogun.
and the Favonius Lance. The first obstacle to contend with the Shogun's power was Amber's Temple, and as I attempted to perform the skip, we slipped between the cracks, making it so that our mom's back was now broken, and making it so that we can't leave. This event quickly made me realize I was not in the mood to deal with this, so I ran over to Kaya's domain to really start this challenge. This time, the Shogun was able to clear the skip just fine, and she even one-shotted almost all of the enemies here. Things are looking good, but looks can really be deceiving. Since we completed the skip on the first try, I figured maybe she'll act right for Amber's domain, and that was thankfully the case. Unfortunately though, this came with a cost. That being our burst. Nice going, buddy. It took us 12 minutes to get that burst. 12 minutes?! I'm not joking, I actually timed it. It was 12 minutes. Lastly, we had Lisa's Temple, and for this, I decided to do it normally. No skips.
What's that?
I'm the old Hoyo, and I want normal clears. That's so fucking stupid. I got a flight to catch. I took my normal pills when recording, and we proceeded to accomplish this the way Hoyo intended, with the God of Electro solving all of these puzzles 30 minutes into starting the game. Now we can get up to AR10 so we can progress the story, and while we do that, I'm just gonna address a couple of things. The first being the elephant in the room. Some of you might have noticed that it is not only Raiden Shogun in this challenge. We are joined by June Yoon today.
Hi, I'm June Yoon, a Los Angeles-based voice actor. In Genshin, I'm the English version of Iptak, Kaming's father in Lantern Rite 2024. I also voice a bunch of NPCs all around Inazuma and Xiaowing Village. And I'm the voice of Kujo Takayuki. Some of you might know, the man who says,
The Almighty
For legal reasons, June cannot replicate that voice in this video. But let's get back to the Aether elephant in the room. We have the Traveler in the first slot with us. The Almighty is here because I thought it would be funny. It's a visual joke. He's not providing any other use besides being an adjective. Granted, this video is not showing you every hour, minute, and second I had to endure for this entire run, but let's just be so for real right now. I've had to go through at least 3 of these runs before, and I've scraped the bottom of the barrel with Lisa, Mona, Barbara, and Mona. The Shogun is nowhere near the levels of them.
I'm a savage! Oh!
But that doesn't mean she's amazing. Out of all the characters I've played so far, this one is probably the most gimmicky. Her normal attacks are average. The charge attack is good, especially compared to the standard polearm special of just tackling your opponent, but her skill is extremely situational. Shogun summons the Eye of Sauron that follows us around and does a coordinated attack anytime we deal damage with our normals. Normally, it's just whenever damage is dealt, but for this run, it's whenever we do damage with our auto attacks. This ability is fine for most cases. It has a decent cooldown, and it lasts for 25 seconds, which means that we will always have it up if we want it to, but it's just a worse version of Oz. There is one thing that absolutely kills this move, and that is this little note right here. Deal damage to opponents. This does not activate whenever our normal attacks hit, but rather when they deal damage. And yes, there is a difference. For example, the Shogun is hitting the campfire. There is a visual and audio indicator for this, so we know that our weapon did actually make contact. However, it is not doing damage. But if we go over to a hilly churl and do the same moves, we are now doing damage, meaning our skill activates. Now, you're probably thinking, MistahFeet, you're so funny and attractive, but you're not fighting campfires the entire game, so what's the problem, Baka? And you would be correct. We are not fighting campfires, but shields are basically the same thing. The coordinated attack does not work on shields, which means that our damage to elemental shields is terrible, legitimately awful, and you will see this come into play much later on. The last thing to talk about this character is
The Muso no Hitotachi!
gathering truths unnumbered and wishes uncounted. Shogun unleashes the Muso no Hitotachi, dealing massive damage and letting us have fun for about 7 seconds. The initial hit does really good damage. The autos and charge attack then get changed to electro damage, and they have decent numbers to start out with. Plus, we get energy back whenever we do attacks. Overall, it is just a net positive compared to the normal auto attacks. The only issue with this burst, however, is that it is a gluttonous beast. This is 90 energy, as much as a physical copy of a Switch 2 game. I hate this economy. This burst is what makes this character good, but it can be a real pain to get it back.
Don't go!
And this is why I said the character is gimmicky, because she doesn't really do much without the burst. The entire run is just me trying to farm my burst and using it in a smart way. Yes, I actually have to think when using my burst, because if I just use it to one-shot enemies, then I'm screwed. I now have to spend more time to get it back again, compared to if I just use it against a tankier enemy, then have the chance to use the new autos to get energy. This character actually requires me to strategize, which is the complete opposite of the last Archon I had to use. And even though I emphasize the struggles with this character, I want you to keep in mind that this is just setting you up for what's to come later. All of these factors aren't that important as of now, because we don't have to deal with too many shields. And it's because of the shield scarcity that we were allowed to start Act 2 after 3 hours and 10 minutes, which is shorter than Venti's time, and that's pretty good. That's really good, actually. This means we could potentially have a new Archon for Mondstadt. Beginning Act 2, Raiden comes out swinging as she manages to hit for a damage high of 890 pretty early on. This is not common. Next was the secret base, where we fell down not only once, but twice prior to our engagement with a Fatui agent, where our eye had more use than just aura farming, because we could easily track him down every time he went invisible. He will never be safe from our vision.
I haven't been able to sleep in a fortnight! Fortnite, let's go, I get it all night!
The next 2 fights perfectly illustrate what I was referring to when I was talking about my burst earlier. In this run, there is a very clear difference between a good burst and a bad burst. While in previous runs, that line is kind of blurred because most characters can get their ult fairly quickly. But for the Shogun, we need to be smart. Against the Ruin Guard, we used our burst to deal huge damage to it, while also getting about 45% of our energy back. But on the flip side, when we fought Lajodi, I have no idea who this is, I used our burst to aura farm, which one-shotted the enemy, leaving leaving us with basically nothing to start Act 3 with. And these decisions definitely matter, because for the first fight in Act 3, we have to fight a Hydro Mage, which we actually do pretty well against if we have the Muso no Hitotachi, but we don't. So we had to use the nearby flowers to help freeze it. Backshots or having your burst up consistently? Having my burst, of course. The Muso no Hitotachi makes his character feel complete, and there's hardly any enemies or shields that can stand a chance against it, so of course I would pick that. Normally in Act 3, we have Dvalin. Shogun did pretty well against Storm Terror. It took her 2 phases, but she made this much progress with just the damage from her skill and autos, which is leagues better than Zhongli's attempt here, leading to the Shogun beating Mondstadt in a time of 4 hours and 40 minutes, making her just 4 minutes faster than Venti and the new Archon of Mondstadt. Where are we going, Raiden?
The big leagues.
Can she carry this momentum over to Liyue? Probably not, because this character has another flaw that I did not mention earlier. Since the God of Electro hails from the land of Electro, that means her Ascension materials cannot be accessed until much later on. Her boss material is locked behind a quest, her local resource is also locked behind a quest, and her enemy drops are all throughout Inazuma, which is locked behind a quest. So until we are AR 30, we are going to be stuck at level 20, and I can't do the trial run to get materials, so don't even ask, unless you want to do that to help get the engagement on this video. Beginning Liyue, we come across our first batch of red leveled enemies, which will be the norm going forward. Unfortunately for us though, the ability to always use the Muso no Hitotachi will not also be a norm in the future. Can we please just take this deer with us wherever we go? While it would be funny to carry this animal on our back with us throughout the entire journey, we ultimately didn't need it as we broke the malfunctioning machine and cleared Cloud Retainer's domain on our first try, leaving us finished with the first act of Liyue.
Rex Lapis assassinated? At the rite of dissension?
Going into the Ascension domain was really not the best experience. We cleared it fine, our burst still does good damage, despite us being 15 levels behind, and we are able to ascend our Favonius Lance, so the normals aren't that bad. But our health is severely lacking at this point, and we are about as frail as an esports player, so by completing this domain, we are only making this run harder for ourselves. This would be like if the Allies gave the Axis powers nukes and various other weapons during World War II. And just a heads up, get ready for more World War II comparisons, because we've got some pretty, inspired enemies coming up later in this run. The second act of Liyue begins at the cooking pot, where we have a bit of an issue. Raiden cannot heat up the cooking pot, let alone cook. Now,
The Almighty
can do it, but Shogun just does not have a single cooking bone in her body. The teapot was the next part of the quest, and this is where I will talk about the Electro Slimes, who were the equivalent of German soldiers during World War II. I fucking hate these enemies. They are immune to Electro, which means that the best parts about this character cannot be used. So we're just left with our normal attacks, ew, and we have to stay right on top of the slimes. Ew. These slimes do damage just naturally with their aura. It's like those kids who don't shower and just wear 72-hour deodorant. But we have to deal with the stench because we cannot hurt them unless we are right next to them. And since we're built like a Smash player, we get pushed around pretty easily.
Bunch of things while traveling. We have talked about a whole bunch of—
Shut the f*** up. You're not recording.
I am.
Don't put that in.
The second act ends with Raiden getting a new damage high of 1.9k, which is really good for this point in the run. She still gets knocked down, but she has shown that she can at least deliver a mean punch back to some of those bullies. With the finale of Liyue, our first obstacle was trying to reach the Jade Chamber, but we couldn't see the correct path. We couldn't see the correct path. It's a joke because we have an eye above us. Well, I thought it was funny. If you hated that joke, then you'll probably be happy to see that the next group of enemies caused me a lot of trouble. These cryo flowers. I don't know what they're putting in these kids' milks nowadays, but god damn do they hurt. And why are the level numbers green? I have no clue. Because they whipped my ass twice. AR 30 cannot come soon enough. But in order for that to happen, we have some pretty major obstacles blocking our path. Starting with Child. Yes, this fight was actually problematic. Like 30 minutes long problematic. The reason Child serves the Shogun's ass on a silver platter was a combination of his strengths and our weaknesses. Child heavily resists Electro, so once again, our skill and burst are basically useless. And even though Child's attacks aren't all that dangerous when you fight him at the proper level, we are not at that point. So even his little water arrow does does about 600 damage to our 3.5k HP. But there are two moves in particular that perfectly highlight Child's strength and our biggest weakness. During this fight, Child has a barrier with a 13% chance to counterattack. Normally, you can just attack the barrier, and if you do enough damage, he gets staggered. Well, we don't do a lot of damage, which means that it takes the Shogun a while to break this. And the longer we're attacking this, it just means that we have a higher chance of getting hit by the counter, which comes out at such an unbelievably fast speed. What the f? And the second problem is the move where he absorbs electro attacks. I don't think I had ever seen this attack, so when I used my eye and saw that I basically got one-shotted, not just once, but twice, I realized that I could not joke around with this fight. I had to actually pay attention, and in order for us to get past the second phase, we could not use our skill at all, which meant that we had to wait half a minute from the last time I used the skill so we could be safe to damage Child without worrying about him flexing his muscles and killing us. As for the final phase, the only move to look out for was his dive bomb that I horribly mistimed at one point, but other than that, we managed to beat this fight, and I think the longest time it has ever taken to beat Child. Is this your god, Inazuma? Shogun ended Leeway after a total of 12 hours and 17 minutes, which is still a pretty good time, all things considered. The Child fight really dragged her back, but this is still a contender for the top dogs.
The big leagues.
Unfortunately for the Shogun, though, her Leeway runtime was 6 hours, 27 minutes, and 34 seconds, making her the slowest Archon for the nation based on home. You see, most people say Leeway's based on China, but I say it's based on home. That's just a glimpse into how Chinese my mind has become after doing Zhongli only. By this point in the run, I was more than ready to get to Inazuma because we needed to ascend like 8 hours ago, and it was only going to get worse. I already started farming the handguards because I'll be damned if you think I'm going to sit on those islands and start fighting these guys when I've already got a whole quest to finish before I can even get the other materials. But in order for us to even start that quest, we have some stuff to do. I'm stuff. OMG, Dane Part 1, Dane Part 2, and the J Chamber quest. No. These three quests showcase two important issues with Raiden, one of which is going to be alleviated fairly soon. The J Chamber highlighted how much our body is struggling to keep up. She is way too frail now, and it's gotten to the point that we even have to dodge these lasers because if we just take like 400 damage, that is still going to matter because look at our HP. Zhongli had double this, not even 4 hours into his run. As for the Dainsleif quest, dear God, during this quest, we have to deal with shields. And in case you forgot, Raiden is absolutely terrible with those. When her burst is up, she's great. Amazing even. But the second it goes down, she becomes one of the worst characters to damage a shield with, and no, I'm not joking. This burst is way too expensive and our skill does not work because it's not damaging it. They're protected by the campfire. 14 hours into this run, and we are now finally able to make it to Inazuma. Upon reaching the island, we jumped off and immediately set sail to another part of the country, but unfortunately, we were stopped by one of the guards. Imagine if God wanted to leave heaven and the gatekeeper told them no. Before we can actually make any progress towards helping our character, we have two things to address. The first is that we start Act 1 by talking to Lady Chisato, who is voiced by none other than Anne Yatko, aka Marionette's mom in Miraculous Ladybug. This is two miraculous VAs in a row now. Also, if you're watching this, Anne, thank you for the autograph. She graciously wrote out the entire voice line, and she really didn't have to do that, but I greatly appreciate that. The second obstacle in our way was the transport mission. Bro said that to the Electro Archon. Now the enemies are yellow, which, I mean, sure, I don't even think the game cares at this point. Regardless, this quest was the final battle for our level 20 Shogun, because after this, we now had access to Seirai's Storm Chasers.
I'm not sure what we should get. You feel like tempura?
Cereal Island is a place that I don't think I've ever talked about on any of my challenges, but it's very important for the Shogun since 2/3 of our materials are located here and nowhere else. The first are Amakumo fruits, and I thought that I could be a cheeky little bugger and grab a couple of these before starting the quest. However, this island's main gimmick is that there's too much electro in the air, and that makes us take damage. I was only able to grab 7 of them, and that was enough for us to ascend past level 20 nearly 16 hours into this run. But if we wanted to get higher than 40, we need to actually do the quest. So now the question is, do we want to get higher than 40? Yes, this quest really isn't that bad. It's only like 15 minutes long, and for the puzzles, all I did was follow this video because I really can't be bothered. I'm just trying to level her up, man. I don't care. Once we reach the top, we can finally meet our boss, which is Thunder, an electro energy that has been manifested into Thunder Manifestation. Design-wise, it's just an Electro Oceanid, but these two bosses differ heavily in the gameplay department, with the most notable difference being that I don't want to kill myself when fighting the Electro one. one. Thunder Manifestation is honest. His attacks are easy to read, and you aren't forced to deal with him under a time limit. Thunder Manifestation is brave. He fights you head on and doesn't rely on minions to do the work. Thunder Manifestation is silent, and he knows to shut up when fighting. In all seriousness, this boss is one of the better ones to fight solo. He only has one annoying move, and that's his Beyblade spin. Because sometimes when he does it, he'll go like all the way to the other side of the arena, and it's just a hassle having to go back and forth when he does it all the time. The boss is immune to Electro, but I can deal with that. I'm already used to fighting shields, so if we don't have Electro with our Electro God, it's not the end of the world. We farmed this boss a couple times until our Shogun was able to reach level 60, meaning she had finally caught up to the other two. Going back to the Archon quest with Inazuma Act 2, Raiden was tasked with doing the archery demonstration. I thought I had potentially the biggest brain idea possible here. What I was going to do was use a bow character, give them a weak weapon, and have it so that one arrow would activate the Shogun skill effect, then damage the target. Unfortunately, that didn't work because this doesn't count as dealing damage to enemies.
Wordplay? You tricked me with a technicality?
Now we have one last act for Inazuma, and it's wild that the Muso no Hirotachi was a weapon once used to slay gods, and now it's being used to power a generator. And these generators survived the sword slash. So for the lore and power scalers out there, how did the Electro Monument outscale Urabashi, a literal god?
What? I don't know. I have no idea.
This was one island over, so we know for a fact his skull saw this happen. We then move over to said island to infiltrate the Delusion Factory. The Fatui enemies are Raiden's best friends. These guys have shields, but what makes them different from the Abyss is that when we attack their shields, we are still doing damage to their health, so we can actually get use from our ability. If our skill gets used, then we can actually get energy, and we can use
The Muso no Hitotachi.
Does this mean Electro is great against these shields? Not really. It's only good against Hydro, but the damage from our burst and skill is still enough to make this faster than had we just used our normal attacks. On our way to fighting Senora, we stopped by the Kujo clan real quick just so we could get a new damage high of 4k and so that we could drop off June.
Alright everyone, this is my stop. Thank you for letting me be on this ride. And thank you Minty_Chu for the amazing Minty_ thumbnail. You did a great job, like always. Thanks for having me. Folks who know me know that I am a big fan of dad jokes, so I'll leave one with you as well. It's about feet. Mahatma Gandhi was known for walking hundreds of miles barefoot. Over time, he developed an incredibly thick calluses on his feet, stronger than the soles of many shoes. He also ate lightly and fasted often, which left him frail and gave him chronically bad breath. And all of this, of course, has made him into a super calloused, fragile mystic hexed by halitosis. You're welcome. Have a good day.
Thank you, June. As for Senora, we all know what happens at the end of this fight. She gets one-shotted by
The Muso.
So now, I get the opportunity to fully test out if that is what would really happen. The answer is no. She actually survived it 3 times, as a matter of fact. How does this scale her with Urabashi? Okay, in all fairness, the Shogun did this fight at about an above-average pace. She was able to farm her burst pretty consistently from Senora, and the weather was never really that much of an issue. But now, it's time for the most anticipated matchup in this channel's history. All of the challenges have been leading up to this. It is time for
The All Mighty Raiden Shogun.
to go against.
The All Mighty Raiden Shogun.
This is some bullshit, I'll be honest. This fight was the literal definition of when a boss becomes a playable character. She has more health, and she is immune to Electro. This would have been so helpful for when we were fighting the Germans. She does more damage than us. She can actually use her Muso no Hitotachi. We are just using the Favonius Lance and smacking her with it, while our counted wishes keep healing us. Is this what the people wanted? To see their god get their ass kicked? Well, I mean, they're getting it. The Shogun ended Inazuma after a total runtime of 20 hours and 14 minutes and an Inazuma time of 5 hours, 32 minutes, and 37 seconds, which is nowhere near the other 2 Archons. Raiden Shogun is officially no longer the Archon of Inazuma, which means that for the rest of this series, either Zhongli or someone else will become the god of Inazuma. Now that we've finished 3 nations, the next quest is with Dainsleif in the Chasm, which serves as an omen for what's to come after Sumeru. The first couple of enemies did not add much in the way since they're normal. They take normal damage. However, the fun starts to fade with the Hydro Herald. And this time, I did not have my burst to start out with. I did get it towards the end, which helped tremendously, but for most of this fight, it's just like using the Eye of Perception, waiting 10 seconds to get any actual damage done. With the fun fading away thanks to the Hydro Herald, it completely vanished because of the Electrolector, or as he might also be known as, Joseph Goebbels. This enemy. This was so boring. He doesn't move. For 10 minutes, he stood in this spot while all I could do was just wait for his attack, then move in to do physical damage, all while he spouts his propaganda about the truth. And this isn't like Kaching's run where we have the prototype Rancor. No, we're using the Favonius Lances so we can try and get particles for the charity foundation that is our burst. We don't do shit for damage. And what pisses me off the most is that I can't really talk about this. It's not difficult, it's just tedious. I mean, look at this. I will show you an uncut clip for 10 seconds and you will understand. This went on for 10 minutes, which doesn't sound bad, but when you're actually doing this, it feels so much longer. With Goebbels defeated, it makes sense that we aren't too much farther away from Adolf Hitler, or as he might be more commonly known as, the Electro Abyss Mage. I have already shown you what it's like to fight Abyss Mages that aren't Electro. It's annoying, it's tedious, it's boring, but it's manageable. The skill works fine, and if we have the burst up, that's even better. But what is it like when we can't use it? Hell, I cannot express the anger that flows through my body every time this shows up on screen. And you might be surprised to hear this because his shield isn't nearly as resilient as the Abyss Lectors, and it's not. If these two were side by side and did not attack, I would clear the mage's shield much quicker. However, I mentioned that the Abyss Lector does not move. Well, the Electro Mage has the opposite problem. He moves around too much, but that's not even the worst part. This mage has two moves. Two f***ing moves. A ranged projectile that he almost never does, and this ring attack. I cannot tell you how badly I want to strangle this mage with my bare human hands. Yes, I want to physically put my hands into this f***ing game and kill it with my own hands. This circle attack makes it so that we cannot be near him, and he does this move every 2 seconds. So the process looks like this. We go in, do 2 moves, then we have to run away because he starts the animation. Look at this. I had to do this over like 20 fucking times. And if you think this isn't that bad, I dare you to do it. Here, there's an Electro Mage at this spot. Grab your Shogun, give her a level 60 polearm, and just normal attack it to death. I bet you won't. I triple dog dare you. And even when we don't focus on this mage, he moves around so much and stops us from attacking the other ones by putting it in the circle. What a selfish prick. How can I make this about me, headass? Fuck this enemy from the bottom of my heart. I cannot stand this piece of shit. With Hitler gone for now, we ascended our Shogun to level 70 and gave her a new weapon, the prototype Star Glitter. Yeah, it's not that great, but it gives us energy recharge, and we can't use the Favonius Lance anymore because we can't level it past 50, since we don't have access to its materials. Venti is doing his best to make this run harder for everyone else. And if you're thinking about typing, what about the catch? Then finish that because it's going to help with the engagement, but let's be dead ass. Who is fishing in the big 2-6? Sumeru was probably the Shogun's best nation. In addition to having higher talent levels, most of the enemies in this quest allowed for the Shogun to deal more damage and have faster times. She was hitting damage highs of 5k, 6k, and even 8.8k. Prior to Act 5, there were no shield enemies, which meant that we got to actually play a complete character. And even once we start Act 5, she's still putting up a very good fight. Yes, she can't break any of the shields, but the reactions that her skill causes do a good enough job of damaging their health, which allows her to do these sections in a pretty good time. This character's runtime is completely dependent on whether or not abyssal enemies are in the quest. I heard there's gonna be abyss mages in this quest. Better keep my ass in Tenshikaku or I'll be finished. There was one shield that Raiden actually did well against, but it's an enemy that only shows up once in the entire Archon quest. And not just Sumeru, I mean every single Archon quest combined. The Cryo Citizen Mage has a shield that can easily be destroyed from our burst, and if we don't have our burst active, we can just use our skill to destroy her little bats, which are basically just batteries that keep her shield alive. So I guess there are now 2 shields that the Shogun can easily handle without her burst being up. We have now reached everyone's favorite part of my videos, domestic abuse. Most people would agree that the Shogun isn't exactly the greatest mother out there, so it's no wonder that her Pinocchio turned out like this instead of someone with more whimsy. But now, quite some time has passed between these two. One has changed and grown with hatred, while the other sat still and forgot about the other.
I keep having this nagging feeling that I've forgotten something.
Hey, if you forgot it, it probably wasn't all that important.
Yeah, I guess.
So let's see if Skara's angsty teenager phase is enough to withstand the Muso no Belto Tachi. The answer is yes. Since Skara was raised by a literal god of lightning, he had the foresight to include a shit ton of electro resistance and electro immune turrets for this fight, meaning that we're just gonna have to resort to our prototype Star Glitter in order to get any hits in. We couldn't even AFK farm the beginning section because some little comedian out there thought it would be hilarious to have the Traveler on standby for the entire run. And you know, to be fair, I think it is a little amusing. Even with Skara's electro resistances, we still managed to beat our child yet again. Just because you've gone numb to the powers of the Muso no Hitotachi, that does not mean punishment still cannot be administered. Act 6 of Sumeru gives Shogun another opportunity to cook.
Let him cook! Let him cook now! Let him cook!
It also doesn't help that this time we have to use a campfire, and I don't know if you can tell what a relation to that has been in this run. So we called on Chevrolet to help make a campfire the American way.
Drop your weapons!
Raiden finished Sumeru with a total runtime of 30 hours and 32 minutes, which is still a great time for character-only runs.
The big leagues.
Like I said, this was probably her best nation, so let's see how she compared to the other Archons in the individual Sumeru times. Oh, Fontaine, more like Fawn Lame. I'm 23. Not much can really be said for this nation when it comes to the Shogun's run. We still do good enough damage, but the enemy's attacks are starting to hit a little harder to the point that it's reminding me of the early days. We started off as a glass cannon, then evolved into a cannon, and now we're just like a glass gun. We can still hurt someone just as not as much as a cannon, but we can also be like snapped in two. On the bright side, the nation of Fontaine did not have any Abyss enemies for us to fight. It was just robots and hilichurls, which helped the Shogun get the fastest time out of any character for this country, making Raiden the Archon of Fontaine. I guess I just pressed F faster in this run than the other ones.
I'm about to skip this shit. Skip.
Natlan, the Nation of War. Given that we were the previous Archon of a nation that was once in a pretty serious conflict, this means that our Shogun should be very equipped to handle whatever this nation has to offer, right? Uh-huh.
I would not want to live in a world like this. This looks like Skibbity Toilet.
We had a strong start out on the beach, with the Shogun hitting a damage height of 10k, which is not that common of a feat. However, Natlan's main gimmick is based around a feature that has been haunting Raiden throughout this entire run.
Oh my gosh! A floating shopping list! I'm not a shopping list!
I'm a shield! There are 3 layers to the hell that are elemental shields in Natlan. On the outermost layer, we have abyssal pylons. These are annoying, but the most tolerable of the 3 layers. What saves these from being an absolute pain in the ass is the fact that there will always be enemies around them, meaning that we can get energy from our skill and use our burst on the shield to meet the elemental damage threshold. The second ring is one that we'll discuss later in Act 6 because that's when it's first introduced, so we're gonna head to the innermost circle of hell, the Mimics. Act 4 of Natlan in general feels like it was designed to make the Shogun's life miserable. There's only one Abyss Mage in this entire war, one, and it's Hitler. And as for the Mimics, what the fuck are these things? I curse Edwin for ever making these abominations.
My name is Edwin.
These enemies have a shield that function like abyss pylons, but what makes them more annoying is that they fight back. They move around, but most importantly, they do not respawn enemies. Why is this a big deal? Because once we run out of enemies to fight, we cannot get our burst back. And even if we use our burst, it still can't fully deplete their shield. We have to use our elemental skill. Look at this. Yeah, there's no way in hell she's getting the fastest time for Natlan. This is one of the most boring fights you can do in Genshin, period, and it all stems from the fact that we cannot get energy back. The war took nearly 2 hours to do, and about 40 minutes of it, we're just dealing with these mimic shields, because every 10 seconds, we do this much damage to them. Act 4 was one of the most grueling quests I've had to do for a solo character run, and it sadly did not get much better for Act 6. The first combat section in Act 6 really encourages us to use a crowd character, since every enemy they throw here has a very big weakness to it, and because they give us a free seat lolly, it's clear what they want us to do. But sadly, we cannot use her. And what's even more sad is that our Electro God is not also the Cryo God, so we have to deal with Hitler again. And after Hitler, we reach the second layer of hell with these dark light candlesticks. That probably smells like shit. The abyssal candles are basically the same as the pylons, except that they drain energy away from us, meaning we can't get our burst. Based off of this this description alone, it sounds like someone like me would have an aneurysm just based off of hearing that, but thankfully there is a benefit to this. When it drains our energy, it deals damage to the shield, and if we attack enemies within the radius of the candle, we can use our skill and have our new particles be fed into the shield, dealing damage to it. So it's not the worst gimmick to deal with, but if you don't have an enemy to use a skill against, then it's just a more annoying version of the pylon. Too bad almost every enemy in this quest doesn't work with our skill. There are so many elemental shields in this one quest. I genuinely could not believe what I was dealing with. At the very least, we don't have to deal with Goebbels again, but look at everything else we have to fight. In Act 6, there is a Hydro-Mage, Electro-Mage, Hydro-Herald, Pyro-Mage, Cryo-Mage, Pyro-Lector, Hydro-Mage again, Cryo-Mage again, Electro-Mage again, a Hydro-Herald again, and a Cryo-Lector. Why?
Who is this fat Bugs Bunny variant?
This feels like it was designed to be the most miserable quest imaginable for the Shogun. We can't use our sword. It's just waiting around for 10 seconds and dodging attacks. This last section took over 30 minutes to do. 30 minutes! And I didn't even kill all the enemies. I skipped like 6 of them. We do that little to shields. I am not joking with what I'm about to say. And this is a very bold statement that I'm sure could potentially change in the future. But I've thought about it a lot, and I think it's true. I've had terrible fights in the past. Awful, boring, heinous, specific battles like Lisa Aleph, Goku Cryo Gunner, and Dia and that one mimic. But in terms of a whole quest, Raiden Shogun Natlan Act 6 might just be the worst specific solo character quest combination I have done. Yes, it is that bad. Sure, there have been worse individual fights, but as a collective, this is hands down the worst that I can recall off the top of my head. And after 50 hours, 38 minutes, and 21 seconds, we beat Genshin Impact only using
The All Mighty Raiden Shogun.
This run had some highs, but a lot of lows. Lots of lows. However, even despite the frustrations, this run was definitely a lot more interesting than Zhongli's, so I can't be too mad at her for that. I will say that this did surprise me. I really thought that she would just be one-shotting enemies left and right, but that was not the case. Her Natlan time was 8 hours, 30 minutes, and 7 seconds, which does put her slightly behind Zhongli, leaving us with this for the current Archons for each nation. Shogun is no longer the Archon of Inazuma, but she did manage to become the new god of both Mondstadt and Fontaine, so let's see how she fares when we judge her with the ratings. For damage, I'm gonna go with a 4. Her damage against anything that doesn't have a shield is great. It would be a 5, honestly, but these shields absolutely killed her run. I thought about making it a 3 because of how bad it was. Exploration, 3. There's nothing really special here. She's just a tall woman, so she's faster than most of the cast. You know, it's just slightly above average. Sustain, 0. She cannot cook, she has no way to heal herself, and electrocharged hurts. And by the way, if you're wondering if I made food in this run, yes, I did. And even though the Shogun cannot cook, it will auto-select another character to make the food for you. This happens in like just about every run that I do, so I didn't think it was a big deal to let
The Almighty
make chicken mushroom skewers, since, you know, they've done it for like other characters in the past. However, this does mean that she technically gets another can't, because you have to cook a pizza in Ayaka's quest, and that's needed for Inazuma Act 2. As for bosses, I think a 3 is fair. For every boss that she did good against, like Senora, Thunder Manifestation, and Dvalin, there was also a boss she did bad against, like Child, Shogun, and Skara. Lastly, for ability/utility, I'll give her a 4. The skill and burst are not bad. They are solid abilities that deal good damage, and they can get energy back very quickly. But if a shield shows up, this character just falls apart. Overall, Shogun gets a 14 out of 25, giving her a D, while ending with a buff damage high of like 1k and an unbuff damage high of 10k. This concludes the Raiden Shogun run. I know I said that I would do Nodcry in this video, but some things came up. I recorded this run in early January before Nodcry finished, and my goal was to include it and have it out by the 30th, but something important happened, and I was gone from my computer for a week. Plus, there was also a sponsor due like on this day, so I just couldn't get to Nodcry in time. The next video from me will either be Aino or Nahida only. A poll will be out for my channel members and Patreons. They will be the ones to decide which character gets the next video first. I will be recording both of the gameplay in February, and I plan on getting both of those videos out in March, but the paid people are going to decide which of those gets the first character. And before we end, I would just like to thank June for being a part of this video. This seems like a full circle moment for me, honestly, because, you know, that voice line is what my channel is most known for, like, honestly, and having the voice actor of that line be a part of a video now, that means a lot to me. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and remember,
None can contend with the supreme power of the All Mighty Raiden Shogun and the Muso no Hitotachi.
Tell me why